Hi, my name's Mia Austin, and I'm here today to help you figure out what to do with all the stuff in your life. Did you get a chance to read that? Did it make you feel kind of frazzled just reading that? Did it remind you of things you should be doing right now instead of sitting here? I know exactly how you feel. How many of you have ever felt like that? Yeah, if you're not raising your hand, you're fibbing. You're fibbing this morning, right? So what we're going to do today is I'm going to talk about why you feel like you can't get it all done. No matter how much you feel like you're on your A game, there's probably still some little thing somewhere that you feel like might have fallen through the cracks, right? And then figure out how to get control of all the stuff in your life. And then I want to give you some practical tools to help you with that. So how many of you have heard a motivational speaker and at the end you were so motivated because they said so many fabulous things that you couldn't do any of it? I felt like that. And that's one reason why you don't have anything in front of you. There's no PowerPoint in front of you. There's no place to take notes. Because what I want you to do today is just sort of soak it in. And if you hear one thing, just one thing, I'd rather have you walk away with one thing that you think you can actually do that will actually change the way you feel than trying to understand everything I'm going to say to you today. And you are going to get a copy of this, so you'll be able to go back through it. But what's most important today for you is that you take away one tool that will move you forward, okay? So I want to let you know kind of where I get my material. First of all, I've studied a lot of time management philosophies. I've read all the books. And I wound up feeling like I didn't have enough time to do all the stuff that they told me to do to manage my time. I love these two books. They're my favorites, and a lot of what I'm going to use today is drawn from them. If you want to be more overwhelmed, you can read one of these books. But hopefully today I'm providing you with just some nuts and bolts from these things that will allow you to actually feel differently when you walk out of here today about what you have on your plate. There's more. There's some other really great things. Juggling Elephants is a good book. Eat That Frog is a good book. In fact, the Pilates lady, you've probably seen the infomercials in the middle of the night, has a fabulous little system of wonderful colored little notebooks. And oh, I thought that looked so interesting. That's just a wonderful system of little colored notebooks. So at the end of the day, I think this just boils down to feeling differently about what you have on your plate and understanding what to do to move forward. There's also a great video, and when you get the PowerPoint, you'll have this link on procrastination. Very funny, very insightful. I still procrastinate. Clearly it didn't do any good for me, but I wanted to give you that reference because it is somewhat inspiring. I don't know if you've ever felt like this at the end of one of your days. Yeah? Yeah, almost every day, sometimes, right? And what's really causing us stress is not so much about what's on our plate. It's about the way we feel about what's on our plate. It's our perception of what's on our plate. There's the highway right there. Stressed out and sleep deprived. Which lane do you want to take? Maybe you're traveling in both lanes. So how do we change our perception? Well, the first thing I want to talk to you about is learning how to capture what I'm going to call open loops, which is part of what they talk about in the book, Getting It Done. And then figuring out what to do next and figuring out when to do it. Those three things make a vast difference in helping you feel differently, changing your perception about what's on your plate. So how did we get like this? Well, first of all, there was a time when you could open your wooden shutters and look out and see how much corn you had to bring in, how much of the field still needed to be plowed. You saw the piles on your desk, and that gave you some sense. And they were in your physical world. So you felt a little bit better about having a handle in it. That those physical files weren't going to disappear into a cloud somewhere, right? Or back in those days, it went by and you knew exactly what you had missed at least. It didn't go someplace where you never saw it again. You knew what had to be done because you could see it. And that's one of the things that's very different about our world today. We live in the cloud. And you can't see what has to be done the way you could before. And I feel like that's made a really big difference in our perception and the amount of stress that we feel. Who said the real estate profession was stressful? I'm 48 and I feel great. So what happened? Well, I think it all went downhill when the electric typewriter came in. You see that? The electric typewriter was the beginning of our demise. But look at that. Look how steeply that goes up. That's the speed at which we work. And we have been on a trajectory to the moon ever since the electric typewriter. So how many of you get an update on your phone that you didn't authorize, like you shut it off and then it's updating and now you don't know how to use one of the apps that you knew how to use before? Every day, something changes in our lives. Technology is constantly evolving. Our job responsibilities, that constantly changes with technology. All of a sudden, you're responsible for something that you weren't before. Something is being done a different way. And if you have children, you go from one season to the next. You make it through baseball season and then basketball and football start. And so there's this constant, well, I just figured out how to juggle all of that, and now everything's changed again. And we wonder why we feel stressed. It's like we're in a constant morph mode. And we don't know exactly what is happening here. And when did it happen and how did it happen exactly? I'm not really sure. Over half of us leave work every day, and especially if you're basically self-employed, there is no leaving work, is there? Yeah, I understand. And we feel overworked and tired and stressed at the end of every day. And I don't know why they still sell those day timers at like the office places. There's dust on them. Seriously, go to that aisle and look. Like you can blow and then you kind of have to back away because of the dust on them. Because that doesn't really work anymore. We live in the cloud. Nobody else writes things down anymore. So trying to keep that planner is very difficult in today's world.
There are still some of us.
There's still, okay. Well, we're gonna talk about that, sister. You and me are gonna talk about that.
I know where it's
I'm gonna give you a solution for your planner. You can still have a planner. It's just gonna be a little different, okay? So let's talk about this idea of open loops, okay? So what happens when you're driving in your car? And you're helpless? Not as helpless as we used to be because you have a Bluetooth so you can make some calls. But that's when you think about things like, I need cat food. Now I have 3 cats. They're indoor-outdoor cats. But when I pull into my garage, I feed them in the garage. And if I have forgotten to feed them in the morning, they literally jump up on the hood of my car and look at me like this. And it's kind of scary. There's 3 of them and 1 of me, okay? But I feel like I spend a lot of my time trying to remember cat food and toilet paper. I don't know what there is about that. But I used to spend a lot of time walking around saying to myself, people thought I was crazy, cat food, toilet paper, cat food, toilet paper, cat. Have you ever done that with something you needed to remember? What's the other time when that stuff comes to you? When you're naked in the shower. And you can't do anything. You can't make a phone call. You can't write it down. Or your bed. That's the magical place where it all comes to you, doesn't it? Yep. Middle of the night. And then there's the toss-up. Do I get up, because then I'm going to be wide awake, or do I try to go back to sleep? And when you try to go back to sleep, you're doing cat food, toilet paper in your head. Well, that's what's happening. Yep. Just like that little hamster on the wheel, it's going on and on in your head. So let's talk about some things that we loop on. See how many of these apply to you. Old medications, products in the bathroom. We're going to get really intense here. Things in closets I will sort through someday. A junk drawer. How many of you have remote controls to things you no longer own? How many of you have a garage door opener for a house that you no longer live in? It's in your junk drawer, right? Yeah, you might. You just might. Uh-huh. Notes on scraps of paper. Notes on papers or bills in my purse. Notes, papers, receipts over the sun visor. Reminders on a wall calendar. Notes on the fridge. Things in the closet I will sort through someday. Projects I'm stressing about. Invitations I haven't responded to. Reminders on my phone that I snooze. How many of you set a reminder and then you just keep snoozing it? Just keeps coming back and buzzing at you. Things that you need to do in the future, your taxes, plan for a trip, an event you have coming up you need to prepare for. Things I count on my spouse to nag me about. How about that? A room where things are in piles. This is one of my favorite. Shows I DVR and have not watched. How many of you feel bad when you open up your DVR? You're like, oh my gosh, when did there get to be 15 episodes of The Good Doctor in my DVR that I haven't watched yet? A disorganized kitchen cupboard. Garage that needs to be cleaned. I don't even remember what's in my attic. That is so true. We moved in this house 15 years ago. We put stuff in the attic. I don't know what it is. So why is that happening? Why do we loop on stuff? Because you haven't captured it when it hits you. So you have to keep reminding yourself, cat food, toilet paper, cat food, toilet paper, cat food, toilet paper. And even if you do write it down, you don't know what you're going to do next or when you're going to do it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what causes your stress. That is the very thing. So, if you think of something you need to do more than once, you just wasted your time. Not only did you waste your time, but you stressed yourself, because if I invited you out to lunch next week and I realized I can't make our lunch, I would call you and say, hey, I can't make our lunch, can we reschedule? Or say, hey, I can't make our lunch, I don't know when I can do it, we're going to have to put it off now. I wouldn't simply just not show up for the lunch. But we do that to ourselves all the time. We don't respect ourselves as much as we do an acquaintance, a business acquaintance. We blow ourselves off all the time. We make promises or say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to get on this, I'm going to get on that, and then we just don't do it. Now, you may not believe in all of this stuff that I like to call psychological poo, but trust me, that is the reason that you feel bad. You're actually breaking promises to yourself. You are not treating yourself with respect. We all have 1,440 minutes in a day. We have the exactly same amount of time every single day. And it's not that you don't have time, and even if you didn't, I can't give you more. But what I can help you get today is clarity about what to do with those 1,440 minutes. Now, I wish I could give you a beautiful magic solution, the Bath and Body Works solution, but it's not that you need more time. It's not that you need a magic solution. You just need more clarity. So how do we gain clarity? Well, I'm going to talk to you about something called a capture tool. My capture tool is always with me. It is outside of the shower. It is next to my bed. It is in the car next to me. I do wait till I stop at a light. I just want you to know, I'm not one of those people. But I can very easily note something that I'm looping on in my capture tool at any point. If you came into my office to have a meeting with me, I would ask you where your capture tool is. If you came into my office, you would see my capture tool would be open on my desk at all times. This thing never leaves me. Okay? Now, you can use paper or electronic. We're going to talk about that. But here's the idea. You have to pick one thing. One thing. For gentlemen, sometimes it's one of those little tiny pads that you can stick in your front pocket or in your rear pocket. For ladies who carry a purse, you might have a little bit bigger option for you. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be big. You just have to be able to capture the things that you are looping on. Everything, big and little. You can see right there, one of the things I'd captured at that time was buy pillowcase. I like to use a silk pillowcase, and I needed to buy a new one. When do you think I remembered that I needed to buy a silk pillowcase? When I laid my head down on the scruffy old silk pillowcase that I had, right? So I captured it. It took what? 20 seconds to go on Amazon, silk pillowcase, that's cheap, click, one click buy. That's how long it took. I captured it. Because you only have so much available space in your mind for that kind of stuff. You can't go to Best Buy and buy more of that kind of RAM. It just doesn't work. And so you're using up your short-term memory, and that again is something that makes you feel stressed when you don't have a capture tool. Now, can you do this electronically? For those of you who have gone all electronic, yes, you absolutely can. There's some lovely tools that act as capture tools that you can even sync up with other people. Let me tell you why I don't do that and I do this. What happens when you open up your phone? Yep. There's all of a sudden, there's a text message. You respond to that. Then you see a Facebook notification. Then you're like, oh, I need to check my email. And now you're 3 minutes in and you think, what was I supposed to capture? Right? Plus, you have to type on the little thing. I mean, if I'm in the shower or I'm in the car, you can see what I've captured already today. That's not hard. And I am not looping on these two things, because the minute they hit my head, I captured them. Why is there so few items in my capture tool at this point? You'll find out in a little bit. So where do you start? How do you start this? The first thing you do is get a capture tool. Most people leave this seminar and stop by Quick Shop, CVS, Walgreens, and get something. You might also note, when I open this up, how good is it to have a capture tool if you don't have a pin? I make sure that the pin is always attached to my capture tool, or it doesn't work.
These are great.
Yeah, and anything that will attach to is good. Is that a Platinum Realty pin?
First American.
Okay, all right, so that works. That's okay, whatever, yeah, whatever, that works. So you start at the beginning. The first couple days, you're going to fill your capture tool up. Stuff's going to come. As time moves forward, it gets simpler. It's just starting. So let's talk about what we're not going to do anymore, okay? Now, remember one of the first things that I told you was this is not about what you have on your plate. This is about your perception. You can poo-poo me and you can snicker and you can say that won't work for me. But I'm telling you right now, you can change the way you feel about how much you have to do if you will follow this. There are some rules. How many of you are scribblers? You make notes on things. It's okay. You can admit it. This is a safe place. This is a safe place. My mom used to write herself notes on the back of her mail. And then she'd pull whatever it was out and throw the envelope away, and now the note's gone. Drove me, and she'd just have stacks. No, don't touch that. Well, when are you going to do something with all these envelopes that you have right here? How many of you are to-do list makers? Doesn't it feel good to cross that off at the end? Uh-huh. Sorry. We're going to replace that. Why? Yes, there is a psychology between making a list and crossing things off. But how many times do you have things crossed off and then sometimes you write it on the next page, or sometimes you didn't finish it, so you rewrite it the next day on the next to-do list? It is not efficient. Do you understand that? I'm going to give you something that feels better than crossing things off a to-do list. Okay? Stick-em users, raise your hand. Safe place. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. The only thing you're allowed to write on a stick-em is a note while you're talking on the phone to someone, and I would rather have you put those notes in your capture tool. What happens to stick-ems? How sticky are stick-ems? They're not always 100% reliable, are they? Yes, and they're small. How many of you do that? Uh-huh. How many of you have more than one to-do list? You have a to-do list on the fridge. You have a grocery list. You have a to-do list at work. You have different planners at different places. How does that feel? How's that working for you? Feel pretty good? Those things are basically in the cloud of your life, right? Using email as a placeholder. Oh, we're all guilty of that, aren't we? Yep. You just leave it in your inbox till you do something with it. And then what happens? How full does your email box get in your email? How does that feel? Does that make you feel good? Probably not. You are exactly right. No more anxiety about that junk drawer or that closet or that space where you're piling things. Why? Because you're going to capture it. Junk drawer. That's all you have to write down. You know what junk drawer it is. It's the one that's been eating your lunch. Every 6 months when you go to get the tape out. And that's when you see the remote controls, the garage door openers, the wires, the screws that you don't know what they came out of. The set of cards that you think may or may not be missing cards. You capture it. The very act of capturing that junk drawer will change the way you feel, because you just respected a thought you had. You just respected an idea of something that you feel like you maybe should do. Now, maybe we won't do it. We'll get there in a second. That's going to be okay too. I've got a solution for that. But the very first part of this to change the way you feel is to capture it. Does that make sense to you? Okay. So then what do you do next? Well, here's something that we often forget. Somebody else might be able to do it for you. Now, often we think, no, they can't. They can't go up in my attic because I don't even know what's up there. I mean, yeah, I could hire the 15-year-old neighborhood kid to climb up the stairs into my attic and stand there and say, I don't know what you want me to do up here. Well, really, let's think about that realistically. First of all, probably a lot of the stuff up there has been pooped on by mice and needs to just be thrown away. That 15-year-old kid can probably identify the difference between a prom dress and Christmas ornaments, right? That 15-year-old kid could bring things down and sort them in piles, and then I could say, trash, 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 box this stuff up, right? There are so many things that you could defer to someone else. Let go of the idea that you have to do everything. How valuable is your time? How much money do you make off an attic transaction versus a real estate transaction? Do you think your time is better spent on real estate than on worrying about or cleaning out your attic? Probably. Okay, the next thought. As we go through this capture tool at the end of every day or the beginning of every day, which is what we do, we see what we've identified. If it's something that we really don't think we can defer to someone else, if it takes 2 minutes or less, you just do it. Silk pillowcase, Amazon, boom, 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 done. 2 minutes or less, you just do it. Now, here's the part where we get tripped up. Starting. Some things may feel, there may be certain things like cleaning out the attic that just trip us up because it's just something we don't want to do, or it's been something you've been putting off for so long, you've kind of created a story around it that makes you feel bad. Because we've been forced into this extremely stressful, very fast-moving life where things are coming at us, politics, family, events, business, like stars shooting past us. Sometimes it's hard just to start. I'm actually a life coach, and this is one of the things that I find people need to work on the most, is just starting. So I actually came up with a tool for that. It's called 3 Things. So the story behind this is when we decided to remodel our upstairs, all of our kids are grown and they moved out, and we thought it's really crummy up there because they were up there for a long time. And it's pretty nasty. So we're going to remodel this. And so my husband made arrangements for a contractor to come to help us. And the night before the contractor was to arrive, my husband said, he's coming tomorrow. We should probably take whatever's still up there out. The kids moved out, right? Shouldn't be a big deal. Take an hour maybe. The kids did not move out, you guys. They left a lot of stuff up there. And my husband's brilliant idea was to take all that stuff out of those 3 bedrooms and put it where? In my living room. That was not a good idea, but I was sort of helpless at the moment because he was carrying things down the stairs and setting them in the living room, and the contractor's coming in the morning, so we just did that. So then we got them all moved out to the garage. What do you think happened when they went out to the garage? Nothing. So what's the first thing I see when I walk out the door in the morning? That stuff. Ugh. What's the first thing I see? Might have had a great day, and I pull in the garage, and there's that stuff. And the guilt of when am I ever going to have time to go through that stuff? So I started to just do something with 3 things every day. Day 1, broken trophy, trash. Stained prom dress, trash. Daughter's diary, might have taken me a little time. I did have to read a little bit of it before I put it in a pile for her. But every day, I did something with 3 things, and it went that quick. Trash, middle daughter, trash. Son, oldest daughter, middle daughter. In the house I went. Until one Saturday morning, I pulled in, and there wasn't much left, and I just finished it off. I do so many things, 3 things at a time, or at least that's how I get myself to start. Because if I know I don't have to figure out how to get rid of all this stuff in my garage, it'll take me 3 minutes right now to do something with 3 things, I can do it. Tax stuff, 3 things at a time. Pile of receipts on my desk, 3 things at a time. Not gonna lie, taking clothes out of the washer might take 3 things out. Usually, when you take those 3 things out, you're like, oh, there's only, a few, I'll just do 3 more. And then boom, it's done. But it allows you to just start. 3 things. Very important tool for you. Okay, so what if you can't delegate it? What if it takes more than 2 minutes and you're not going to do those 3 things? What do you do with it? Well, you schedule a time to do it. That is my actual calendar. I'm with your color coding sister. You can do that. You can color code. If you share a calendar with other people in a network, you can make things private so they don't see your private appointments. But you can kind of see the first thing at the top of my day every day, read my goals. You might have also wondered what this stuff was. That's what I aspire to, how I'm affirming it, and the action that I'm going to take to do it. So every time I open my capture tool, I see that. That's a life coaching tool. We'll get that later. But so you can kind of see my personal appointments are in green. So what if you put something on your calendar like cleaning out the attic, and you know in your heart of hearts you're not going to clean out the attic on Saturday afternoon at 2. You're going to break a promise to yourself. Don't put it in your calendar. Only put things in your calendar that you must do, have to do, have very strong intention of doing. Does that make sense? Because if you put things in there that don't really matter to you, you're going to break promises to yourself, and back comes that guilt. Even though it's not a big deal that I don't clean out my attic. It really isn't. It doesn't eat my lunch every day. But you pile on 20 things like that, and that changes the way you feel. One calendar, guys. You take you wherever you are. You don't have a separate work, especially in your profession. Your life is all, and I would say to anybody who works an 8 to 5 in an office, same thing. You have one life. You need one calendar where everything about your life goes, every single thing. You should have access to it in your phone. Make sense? Block out the time to do it. So, what if you know you're not going to clean out the attic? What do you do with it then? Well, you've captured it, right? So you got to do something with it. So you can put it in one of these lovely places. The first one is doing later. That's a placeholder. Like read the Hunger Games. When those movies came out, everybody said, oh, the books are so much better. Oh, I'm going to read the books. I captured that. Read the Hunger Games. I'm not going to do that right now. I don't have time to do that. I would really like to do that, though. So I put it in doing later. What does that even mean? Why even go through that? It changes your, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to spit on you. It changes your perception. Well, good, I shouldn't have said anything. Now I know better. It changes your perception. You thought of something you think you need to do, you captured it, and you paid respect to it. You gave it a placeholder. What does giving it a placeholder do mentally? You don't loop on it anymore. You don't have to write it down again. Is this making sense to you? Okay, let's talk. Let's get nuts and bolts here. What about that cleaning out the attic? That goes in a different place. So why bother? Because I respected it. I'm not going to clean out my attic. In fact, I told my kids the other day, be prepared to clean out my attic when I die. I don't know what's up there. Maybe you'll find some treasures. Maybe the three of you can go up there and sob and cry and go, do you remember when? I doubt it. But I'm not ever going to clean out my attic. I'm not going to. At one point, I captured it, and it is held in the folder. Now, how do you do this physically? See these folders in my inbox? They're actual folders. Okay? I actually captured it. I wrote it down, and I swiped it over there. It took me 10 seconds to do that. And now cleaning out my attic isn't a placeholder. I told my kids they're going to need to go through my doing never folder when I die. Perhaps you're working on a project, and it's going to take multiple steps. See the folder called reference? That's where you can hold those things. So, if there's something that you capture, I'm planning a trip to Greece right now. The first thing I need to do is find a travel agent. So, I captured find a travel agent. I'm not quite sure, what that looks like, but I actually calendared a time to call somebody I network with who networks with a travel agent and at least get that person's information. And then I may capture something else. I don't know. But this is the beginning of planning my trip to Greece. So maybe you've talked to several travel agents and you're not quite sure what you're going to do next. I might put that, I might put that in something called doing later. And I really thought that I turned this bad boy off. I come from a racing family. Can you tell? That's my racing ringtone. So I'm going to continue to capture and reference those things and put them wherever it makes sense as I go through the process. I may have, a folder called Going to Greece where I put all of those things. But every time I think about something that has to do with Greece, where do I start? I capture it. And then I figure out, what am I going to do with it next? If it takes 2 minutes or less, I'm going to do it. If I can defer it, say, hey, to my husband, would you please talk to so-and-so? They have a friend who's a travel agent. I'm going to defer it. Make sense? So let's talk about some rules here. You've got to empty your capture tool once a day. So you wondered why there's only 2 things on my capture tool? So how good does this feel compared to a scratched up piece of paper or a notebook full of scratched out things? How good does it feel to start your day like this? And so you can see, because I've been doing this for a long time, so far I've only captured 2 things. So as you begin to do this, as you go through your capture tool, or maybe you're exploring a room that's full of stuff that you need to do things with, all of these rules apply to every single thing that you tackle. The first one is, first things first. What does that mean? I have to do the first thing that I've captured. I have to figure out, can I defer it? Can I do it in 2 minutes or less? Am I going to calendar it? Does it go in doing later, doing never, or reference? Even if the second item is more important. If the second item was, did you pay the electric bill? Our tendency is to jump to that. And now you've started jumping around, and now you've started doing stuff, and then you get in your computer and you go to pay the electric bill and a Facebook notification pops up, and now you're talking to somebody on Facebook, and then you're like, oh, crud, did I do this? And now you've just gone astray. What I should be doing is the first thing. If something pops in my head while I'm doing that, what do? Capture it. You've got it. You are exactly right. Everything gets processed equally. What happens to us when we start to look at a list? We start to feel overwhelmed. Following this rule. Remember, this is not about something that you've never ever thought of, some way to give you more minutes in a day or to change what's on your plate. All I'm sharing with you today are ways to feel differently, to not feel as stressed about what is on your plate. When you're going through your capture tool, there isn't the priority, because remember, you're doing this every day. Every day as things hit you, you're capturing them. If it's something urgent that absolutely can't be put off, then yeah, you'll have to do it right then. But most of the time you're capturing something because you're doing something else. And you could keep switching gears to go to emergencies all day long. That's the purpose of the capture tool. Emergency scanning is not processing. One item at a time. You go through your capture tool. Probably next you're going to look at your email inbox. What are you going to do with it? Same thing. Calendar. If it takes less than 2 minutes, do it. Put it in doing later. Put it in doing never. So let's talk about physical items, because we still do have pieces of paper. Has anybody ever done that? Spent 15 minutes searching for my phone in my car while using my phone as a flashlight. Yep, I've done it. Couple of little tips, because you are going to have physical pieces of paper that you have to track. I used to have a very magnificent filing system. It was so magnificent, it was really hard for me to know how to file things. Because if I got a notice from State Farm, if that was about my house, did that go in the hanging section for house? Did it go in the hanging section for insurance, or did it go in the hanging section for cars? It was very confusing. And if you pride yourself on being organized, you may tend to over-organize. So the first tip I want to share with you today is just label it how you're going to remember it. State Farm. Don't use those hanging files. Just put everything in alphabetical order in a manila file folder. The other tip I'm going to tell you is crazy, but it's so good. Use a label maker. There is something about looking at files that have uniform labels on them that makes you feel differently. And what are we talking about today? It's how to feel differently about what you've got. So, I have about 7 label makers. Those label makers right there, that's a Brother label maker you can get on Amazon, and I think they're like $13. Why do I have 7 label makers in my house? Because if I had to go in the other room to get one, I wouldn't. She knows me. She's been there. Yeah. Uh-huh. If you share an office space with someone, each of you should have your own label maker. It should be right there wherever you might need to make the label. I have one in the kitchen. I have one in the bedroom. I have one in my office. I have them everywhere. Because then it's really easy to pop off a label.
How much are the tape things? They used to be really expensive.
No, it's so cheap. Okay. 2 come with the...
So many right now.
Yeah, 2 come with that little Brother one that I showed you. That one right there. That comes with tape in it and an extra thing of tape. And I might buy tape for my 7 label makers, maybe 2 a year, maybe. And they're not very much at all. Amazon, everything's cheaper now that we can get it on Amazon. So let's think about how do you decide what to do. Let's get down to some nuts and bolts. Well, the first thing is, if you need a computer and it's not in front of you, you can't do it. And then, if you're not going to be able to finish something, because you have a meeting or an appointment, it's going to feel really frustrating to start knowing that you can't finish it. So think about that. And then respect your operation mode. Are you a morning person or a night person? Don't tackle something really hard at night if your brain is not fully functioning at night. Calendar that for in the morning. Respect yourself. That's part of what this is respecting what you need and how you like to operate. Don't do the all or nothing. Just start. Just do 3 things. And then what's going to give you the highest payoff? Because you do only have 1,440 minutes in a day. And you can spend your time doing a lot of things that really don't matter. Or you can spend your time selling real estate. The choice is yours. And then, how does this fit in with your goals? Do you have goals for this week? Do you have goals for this month? Do you have a project that you're working on? What about your life goals? Prioritizing and managing your time is so much bigger than cat food and toilet paper. Prioritizing and managing your time is about your life. We want to move beyond being caught up in trying to remember cat food and toilet paper and actually do things that matter. What are your career goals? What are your financial goals? What are your dreams? What's your purpose? Do you even know what your purpose is? How do you know how to spend your time if you don't know what your purpose is? I love this cartoon. Never put time into an activity that has no potential benefit. For example, why bother putting on makeup if you're going to wear that hideous outfit? That's like knitting a sweater for a dead squirrel. I don't know about you, but in my past, I've spent a lot of time knitting sweaters for dead squirrels. And we don't want to live like that. So start to think about, what is your purpose? If you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, what you want to accomplish, how do you know how much money to spend on it? How much time to spend on it? How do you align your resources? How do you know if you're going to be successful if you don't know what the end goal is? I like to take people through the exercise of defining both their business purpose and their personal purpose. And I'm going to leave you with a tool to do that in this. but this is my purpose for what I do, for my motivational speaking. And you kind of work your way from the end to the beginning. You start out with, what do you want the return on investment to be? Well, I identified that when I speak, I want people to imagine new possibilities. I want them to feel like obstacles are removed so that they can actually create a lasting transformation. Okay, so that's what I want them to get. So what three main things do I need to focus on? I need to focus on giving compelling information, using powerful stories, and providing real feasible ways to develop new behaviors. And if I do those three main things, then I will be able to inspire audiences to change habits as well as personal and professional relationships. The harder one was defining my personal purpose. That's kind of overwhelming. Like, what's my purpose in life? Whoa. I had to really think about that for a long time. I really didn't know. But what I can tell you is I like to vacuum. Because somehow to me, if there are nice straight lines in the carpet, everything is as it should be in the world. So somebody could have walked into my door and I could tell they were having a bad day. And the way I'm going to make myself feel better about them not feeling good is to put some nice straight lines in the carpet. And that's probably not a very good idea. So I had to really think about, what do I want the return on investment to be? Well, I want to live joyfully, and I want my family and friends to live joyfully around me. I want people around me to feel security and comfort. And then I want to have inviting and accepting relationships. So what three main things do I need to focus on? My spiritual, emotional, and physical health. I can't give if the pitcher is empty. To provide emotional consistency and financial stability. So that means I go talk to you instead of vacuuming. Clean and comfortable physical environment. Yeah, I get to vacuum eventually. And what's my purpose? To create a joyful, peaceful, stable environment for life and my family and friends. And when you've defined that, and when you have that someplace visible where you can see it, and you find yourself spending a lot of time doing nothingness, it helps draw you back in. It may help you capture something that you've needed to capture that you haven't thought of. I'm going to provide you with that worksheet, so if you'd like to try to take a stab, business is easier. Do your business purpose first. The other thing I want to talk to you about is your vision. I can teach anybody how to get what they want out of life. The problem is I can't find anybody who can tell me what they want. You have to know what you want. That's going to affect what you capture. That's going to create a life that's more than about cat food and toilet paper. In life coaching, there's a saying we use, what you focus on gets bigger. If you focus on the fact that you haven't had a sale in a while, what do you think happens? It gets bigger. You don't have a sale. If you focus on the fact that you don't have enough money in the bank, what happens? You don't have enough money in the bank. You choose what to focus on. You have to be intentional with your thoughts. You have to identify what your vision is, and that will come to you through knowing your purpose. So when I say big black dog, do you see the words? Nope, you probably got a picture of a big black dog. And that's what I would encourage you to do about your vision. See it. Create that image. Create a vision board. Do more than just let it be a passing thought. Capture it in your capture tool. If you show enough houses, you learn all the tricks. Every realtor is a ninja in a blazer. The average burglar breaks in and leaves clues everywhere, but not me. I'm completely clueless. But in the same way that what you focus on gets bigger, what you declare, what you say, maybe inadvertently, becomes reality. If you say, I don't have enough time, I can't get it all done, I'll never close this sale, that's exactly what's going to happen. Really good example of that. I don't know if you're familiar with Jose Lima from baseball, but he won 21 games as a pitcher in one season. Phenomenal record. And his team moved from the Astrodome to a new place that was smaller, and the left infield was closer. And the first time he stood on the mound, he said out loud, I'll never be able to pitch in here. First time he stood on the mound, he said that out loud. He lost 16 games that year. He declared it. I know it sounds like more psychological poo, but what comes out of your mouth, what you are constantly saying, oh yeah, I can't seem to get it all done, or she always frustrates me, or whatever you're saying will become your reality. Trust me. Again, you have to be really, seriously, you have to be intentional about that. You have to be extremely intentional, and you have to understand that whatever it is you say will actually come to be. And I bet you could think of some examples of that in your life. Things that you just can't seem to overcome. What are you saying about it? Are you saying, I just can't seem to overcome this? There you go. Think about what you say about the time, about your 1,440 minutes. So I want you to think about capturing not only all the things you have to do, the bills you have to pay, the meetings, the emails, the things on your grocery list. And let's talk about your grocery list for a minute. So what happens if you need cat food? You capture it. If you can't get into your grocery list right at that moment, or you're doing something else and you stop to get to your grocery list and put cat food down, you just distracted yourself. Just capture it. Trust me, as time goes on, you'll just fill up one page, even if you're capturing things you need to go to the store and buy. And then you put it in your calendar in the grocery list when you're going to go grocery shopping, and it's all there. Or maybe you have an electronic tool for your grocery list. But you capture it, and when you go through your capture tool at the end of the day, you put it on the list. Never have to think about it again. Think about what you're spending your time on. Are you spending time on things that sync up with your purpose? Are you spending time on your vision? What are you declaring? What you focus on gets bigger. If you focus on your vision, your purpose, that will begin to happen for you. If you start talking about your intentions and affirming what you want. And I'm not talking about saying, I am a millionaire. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. I'm talking about a simple affirmation that you actually believe. Like, I am open to becoming more financially secure. That sound believable? If I was to ask you to say, I am going to be a millionaire, you'd probably, you could do it, but it's so remotely removed, it's not going to happen for you. If instead you affirm, I'm open to making more money. I'm open to having a better relationship with my son. I am willing to respond differently to my daughter. I am committed to doing 30 showings in a month. Capture it. Write it down. Then create an action to follow it, to make that thing true. Put it in your calendar. That's how you begin to live beyond feeling overwhelmed and lists. We have to go here. We have to talk about email for a minute. Please read the attached email about the email I sent yesterday in reference to flooding the system with too many unnecessary email. Please forward this email to your entire staff. Woo! So raise your hand if this applies to you. We're in a safe place here. Do you have an alarm? either a sound, okay? Do you interrupt whatever you're doing to check your email? You check it periodically. Do you store all your email in your inbox? You let it sit there. Do you continue to respond to all? It's so easy. It's such a small thing. It's one click. And it's not very respectful for other people. Have you ever spent 15 minutes or more writing an email and it would have taken you 2 minutes to actually physically talk to someone or pick up the phone? Those are all no-nos. That's not the way we want to use email. Another little trick to be respectful of each other, and people will appreciate this, is really actually using the subject line in your email for a real thing. So in other words, start out by telling someone how important this is. You can say, do it whenever, do it later, or urgent, or whatever word or few words describes what you want them to know about what you're telling them. And then tell them what it's about. And then tell them what's going to happen. Veronica can probably testify to the fact that the subject line in our email transactions changed, hopefully every time she talked to me. She would say, here's the document. And then if I had a question, that subject line wouldn't just say document. It would say questions about, please follow up, or something along those lines. So every time our transaction changed throughout that email, the subject changed. And it only took me a few seconds. And then she knew exactly what I was responding to her about. Especially if you communicate with each other, this is a really kind thing to do. And what's amazing is when you start doing it, other people in your life will pick up on it and start doing it with you. And it's very helpful. Don't open and read your email except for times that you've designated. We have to retrain people. We have to say, I only answer email between and here. If you need me and it's outside of that time, please call me. Wow, those phones still work. It's a novel idea, I know. And you can actually program your email so it sends out an auto reply that says, I only check my email between 10 and 11 and 3 and 4. If you urgently need me outside of those times, please call me. At some point, however, remove that because people will get really tired of getting that reply from you over and over once you get people trained. Turn off that pop-up and train people to understand how you wish to be communicated with, so that you don't feel like it's necessary to constantly check your email to see if something happened. Because what happens when you constantly check your email? You get sidetracked. So you're looking for one thing, you want to know if it's done, you want to know if it came back, you want to know if they were approved. And so you keep going in and you keep checking your email, and you just see other things and you do other things. Create structure around how you want to be notified when things happen, so that you don't have to rely on this constant looking to know what's happening. Those are your responsibilities. And then we have to talk about this. I have a really hard time with focus. We are all addicted to digital distractions. That's what ADD actually stands for these days more than anything else, is addicted to digital distractions. We've given it to ourselves. We're interrupted about every 3 minutes. Can you believe that? Every 3 minutes. It's very important that I get this done. Squirrel! And guess what? You interrupt yourself at about that pace. We are so used to start, stop, do this, multitasking, that when nobody else is doing it to us, we do it to ourselves. So this is really important, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to start to change the way you feel about your stress level and what's on your plate. It means that when you're doing something and something pops in your head, you capture it and you go right back. You have to focus on being focused. You know, we spend all day sitting in front of a computer sometimes, and we feel like we've been working our butts off. But actually, sometimes we've just been piddle-farting around sitting in front of our computer, not getting anything important done. Absolutely nothing that will benefit your purpose and your vision. We switch tasks about every 2 minutes and 11 seconds. Your brain cannot switch gears that quickly. It is not possible. So there's some fun little things, also very scary, that will tell you how much you're doing this. There's this little thing called rescue time, and it actually monitors what you're doing on your computer, and it gives you a report about how not productive you are. Doesn't that sound exciting? Wouldn't you like to pay for that? There's a couple of them. There's Focus at Will, there's Focus Booster that help kind of gear you toward that. But really, you guys, it just goes back to changing your intention and focusing on being focused. That would be nice. Because it's hard. It's super hard. It really is. But when you start to loop on that stuff, when those emails pop up, when you hear the Facebook notification, you got to focus on being focused. You got to capture that stuff and move on. So 5 ways to manage your 1,440 minutes. The first and most important one is get a capture tool. 79 cents, I think, for a little notebook at Walgreens. Use it for every single thing that enters your head, no matter how big or little. But please do use it for more than just cat food and toilet paper. Use it for things that you want to do in your life. Use it for ideas you have. And once you've captured it, do it, calendar it, put it in doing later or doing never, but at least just start. And if that's hard, try the 3 things approach. I have some life coaching and executive coaching clients who can't do 3 things. So we've had to say just do 1 thing. I have somebody who about every 3 years can't find their desk. Sound familiar? And then it just becomes this bigger and bigger thing, and every day they leave and come to work feeling awful. And so once we got the desk cleaned, every day before he walks out the door, he takes 1 thing off his desk and puts it away. And some days he's like, oh, and what about this? And I'll put this away, and I'll put this away. Now his desk is not spotless, but we haven't had to do that big cleanup again. Just start. Just do 1 thing, do 3 things, whatever works. Use a single calendar or placeholder. It's another big one. 1 place where you can go and have everything in your life. Focus on being focused. That's going to be one of the hardest ones. And that's where your capture tool really comes in handy, because in order to focus on being focused, you can't sidetrack. And the way to eliminate being sidetracked is to capture the things that are flying through your head. Are you with me? Okay. And number 5, visualize your big black dog. Make your life more than all the things you have to do and need to do. Start to make your life also about what you want to do, about your vision. Choose how you spend your time. Visualize what you want and start to declare, I have exactly enough time. I hope you don't feel like that anymore. Are you ready to own your 1,440 minutes? Hopefully I've given you some tools today that will help you do that. And even if you only do 1 thing, even if you only buy the capture tool and start to use it a little bit, that will start to change the way you feel and your level of stress, trust me. Questions? Who has questions about how this works? real life situations that you're not sure how you would handle them.
At what point in your day do you go through your captured list?
I used to try to do it at the end of every day, but I found that I wasn't very successful doing that, so now I actually start my day with that. First thing I do when I sit down in the morning is I go through my capture tool. I do whatever is going to take just 2 minutes. I calendar, I put in doing later and doing never. That works well for me. It can be anytime. It could be on your lunch. It's just whenever you know. Again, this is about knowing you. Don't break promises to yourself. Do what you know you're going to do. Follow your own habit and your own rhythm. It's a very good question. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so about the caption tool.
Yes.
I am a writer. I just
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So, I love my little planner.
Mm-hmm.
I can't use my planner as a caption tool. Why?
Well, it's too big and it's all over the place. It's got a whole bunch of stuff in there. So how are you going to use your planner for doing later, doing never, reference? If you want to keep that big thing and just capture the concepts of things and then transfer them to an actual calendar, and you can still use a paper calendar. The problem with that is you're going to have that, and some of you do, if you have a purse or a bag, you're going to have that with you all the time if it's separate from your phone. We use our phones so much, and because you can sync up your computer calendar with your phone, that is a very simple, less complex way to do things. But whatever you're going to do, you have to do it. If you're going to use a day timer to calendar your events, that is your life. That's where everything goes. You do not put anything in an electronic calendar. You use your paper calendar.
So here's my question to that. That's exactly what I do. I use, like in my little thing, I had sections where I write my things to do or whatever. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I take whatever's on my calendar and put it to my
Mm-hmm.
personal.
Then you're using that like a capture tool.
Right. That's
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
That's like
Yeah.
the definition.
Yeah.
Yes. How
Capture
we
tool.
moved our Franklin planners to
Right.
our-
You're using them as a
It's a
capture
capture
tool.
tool.
Right. If you're using them as a capture tool, that's fine. But when you start to have different sections for different things, now you've gone amok. Because now that's just like the alphabetical filing system. You've made it too complex. You want to be able to just put gas cards. I need to buy some gas cards for some gifts. Just gas cards is all I wrote. And then I'll either do it online or I'll calendar a time to stop and do it on my way when I'm getting gas. That's it. Yes, ma'am.
So another question is, what if you think of something that's not like super important and we didn't capture it for today? Can you capture it for maybe Tuesday or Wednesday?
You capture it today. If it's not super important and you're not going to calendar it, you put it in doing later. What do you do with doing later? Once a week, you have a calendar item to go in and look at your doing later. And I occasionally also look at doing never, because maybe I want to move some of that to doing later, or maybe I want a calendar. Maybe it's changed its importance. Maybe I'm moving and I really do need to get the kid to come over and look at what's in my attic, right? So occasionally you look at that placeholder. But if you don't know when you're going to do it, if it's just something like, gosh, I'd like to, you're going to capture it and put it in doing later. Make sense? Yes, ma'am.
If you see an article or read something in the paper or something that you want to say that you have to absorb right now, what do you do with it?
So if it's a piece of paper, then, so if it's an electronic thing, I'm going to scan it or put it someplace where I can, just like my email, because we have to handle our email kind of like we do the capture tool, because we have all that stuff coming in every day. So a lot of times I'll email it to myself or email the scanned copy, and then it either goes on my calendar, I move that email to doing later, I move that email to reference or to doing never. Reference. So when you're working on a project, you might have several reference folders. So you capture something about that project when it hits you, and then whether it be electronically in an email or from your capture tool where you're writing things down as they hit you, you're going to take whatever that thing is and move it to the appropriate place. Calendar, doing later, doing never. or if it takes less than 2 minutes, you're going to do it.
Do you
Yes,
ever
ma'am.
find yourself replacing something and doing never, but really deep down inside, you put it in doing never to make yourself feel better, but you really do know you're going to take it out?
I capture it again.
Okay.
That's paying respect to the thing. Like I captured clean my attic quite a few times before I stopped tripping on it. And now it's just in doing never, and the only time I even think about it is when I do this presentation, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's the attic. But still, I'm to the point now where I have processed that thought, and it is no longer guilt. It is truly something that I have determined I am not going to do. And the more of those things you can get out of this sphere, the more you're able to focus on the really important things that are right in front of you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Platinum is so good about having webinars that you can go on, the Platinum TV and everything to watch. And when I called Laura and she told me to go on there and look at all of them, I was kind of overwhelmed because I even wrote them down. And there's, 73 of them to watch.
So is there a link to get you to those things to watch?
Well, you just click on the picture and
Right.
it pops
But
up
there's
and
a
you watch
link. So if you want to watch Platinum videos and that thought hits you, this is beautiful. Look at this beautiful. Let's just take a moment of silence. Yes. So what would have happened if when all of a sudden you felt this need, I should be watching the Platinum videos? That's a tool that's being provided to me. You capture, watch Platinum videos. And then you decide, am I really going to do that? Really? Are you going to go home today and watch a Platinum video?
I hope so.
Okay, then put it in your calendar. Put it in your calendar and respect it. But if you don't do it today in your calendar, where do you think you're going to move it? Doing later.
Okay, I was going to say, I don't want
And
to
if it eats your lunch again, I should be watching those Platinum videos. What are you going to do? Capture it.
And can I make a point? The videos, I do know they're like on the page, like all on that page, but there you can click the category section and just kind of look through the different categories that the videos are under and just pick one that interests you at that time. And I'll watch one video under this category this time as opposed to feeling like...
So maybe in that moment when you're like, ooh, this looks good, you save the link of that video and you put it in your calendar for a time when you know you could watch it. And when that pops up in your calendar at 3 o'clock today and you blow it off, you need to think again. It's great to have the intention, you guys. I admire the intention. I have so many things like that in my life. But we're talking about how you feel. You can hold the link to that. That will be there for you. And when you find yourself with nothing to do or in your car, you can access your doing later electronically and go, ooh, I'm just sitting here. I'll watch a Platinum video. And do it, because it's in your doing later. You've captured it. You have the link right there. You're ready to go to the one that you said you wanted to watch. So we're not changing anything that happens in your life outside of the way it happens right now. We're changing the way you feel about, I should be watching the Platinum videos. We're going to respect that. We're going to put a placeholder and just the link. Because really, this piece of paper might sit somewhere for a while, and then it's going to get pushed. And then you're going to feel bad every time you see this piece of paper.
Well, I make myself put dates on there.
That you watched it. So you could also do that inside your reference. If you want to have a reference, you can put all the links as you decide you want to see them. And when you've seen them, put the date on them. You can still keep all of that. But this is the kind of thing that makes you feel bad. I just want you to understand that. Great intentions. Fantastic, trying to grow. We're all about that. But you have too many of these things, and you're trying to remember to get cat food, and now you feel bad.
You want me to throw that in the trash?
No, I don't. I think that you should frame this and put it in your office with a little note at the bottom that says, use a capture tool. Yes, ma'am.
So I like the three things idea, but in my mind, I'm already playing it out of the major overwhelm that I feel with the projects that I think of that are like your attic or the stuff that went to your garage.
Mm-hmm.
I have a few places like that in my basement.
So let's get real. Are you going to clean your basement this month?
My husband would like me to.
I'm sure he would. Let me ask you the question again. Are you going to clean your basement in March?
I should be saying.
Are you going to clean your basement in March? I'm just asking you to be honest with yourself. And you're not honest with yourself because you feel bad. Because this feels like something you should do. But you feel worse guilting yourself on it.
What about the boxes of all those pictures of your
Capture it. Capture it.
But I mean, we're talking decades it's going to take to do all these things,
Th-
and 3 things at a time.
So you capture it and then you set aside some time. Seriously, my house is not too bad, and I have done it 3 things at a time. I cleaned out my junk room. I clean out my closet. I am constantly in the morning. Sometimes I'll be looking at clothes, and I keep a bag in there for the Salvation Army. And I'll pull out 3 things I know I'm not going to wear. Now, have I completely cleaned out my closet? No. But my closet is constantly getting better because I'm doing 3 things. And I can do that in just a short amount of time.
Because I'm an all or nothing kind of person.
And that's what I'm trying to help you get around. And it takes intention. It was really hard for me to just do something with 3 things in that garage, you guys. Because I wanted the garage to be clean. Was the garage going to get clean? Would I rather feel good? Would I rather spend time with my little dog looking at me going, I love you, I love you, I love you? Or in the garage, going through boxes? No, this is about living your life. You have a big life. And it's so much more. There will always be things that need to be done. There are always attics and garages and drawers and closets. I want you to change the way you feel about that. Stop guilting yourself. There is something you can do. Take a forward step. Capture it. Do 3 things. Put it in doing later. Respect the intention. Respect your husband's wishes. That's on your list. But stop walking around beating yourself up with this list of things that should be getting done that never get done. That's the difference. Has your life changed? No. You still need to clean out the basement. You still need to go through the boxes. You still need to send off the photographs. It was that way before. I just want you to feel differently about it. I want you to be able to open up and focus on your business, on your family, on things that matter. You'll get to those things.
Okay, so you mentioned about priority at the bottom of one of the slides. It says something about return on investment or
What's going to give you the biggest return on investment?
Right. So how does that play into knowing that the basement needs to be cleaned, knowing that my email needs to be cleaned out, knowing all these other things that don't pay me, like
Doing later, 3 things at a time. There's no payoff. What's going to give you a bigger payoff?
so when you say what's going to give you a better payoff, is that emotionally or financially or whatever you need at the time?
Whatever you need at the time. I mean, if that basement is really eating your lunch, if you're getting ready to sell your house and you've got to get that, you can't just keep putting off the basement. You're going to have to figure that out. First thing is, can you get somebody else to help you with it? We forget that. See? We've forgotten it already. Somebody could go through there and make piles of stuff, right? That would at least get you a start. Because remember, what did I say? Just start. It's that all or nothing feeling and the fact that we break promises to ourselves that we're going to start that make us feel bad. When you just start, even if you only move 1 piece of paper, You did something. You do that enough times in enough places. 3 things out of the junk drawer. 3 things I put in a bag in my closet. 3 pieces of paper off my desk. My whole life starts to feel a little different. 3 things at a time. This works. However, I must tell you, when I life coach people on this, I'm coaching them. They keep coming back and saying, well, okay, well, I did such and such. Or, I mean, it's an ongoing process. Anybody else in these last few minutes have any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
As far as email, how would you take these principles and apply that? 'Cause I find I can stick them in folders very quickly rather than maybe going through something in my mind. Because email is just crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
And then not only do you have your inbox, you have the promotions, and then you have what's the other one? So it's,
Yeah. So you have the same rules that you have with your capture tool when you look at your email. If it takes less than 2 minutes to do whatever it is, you do it. If you can defer it, you shoot that email out to someone else. If it's something that you need to do, if you actually need to look at that email and think about that, and it's important because it's got something to do with something you've got on your plate, you calendar a time to do it if it's going to take more than 2 minutes. Or with the promotions, are you really going to, how much, I mean, again, guys, this is about being honest with yourself. You leave all that stuff in there because you think, I'm going to look at that. I'm going to watch those videos. The biggest thing I can get across to you today is stop creating intentions of things you're never going to do. You're just breaking promises to yourself. Even though it doesn't feel like a promise because you don't say, I promise that I will go through the promotional file. You don't do that. But somehow or other you did make a promise to yourself. And that's what makes you feel bad. You've got to get real. If you're never going to look at that stuff, delete it. If you feel like you might need something in there, put it in doing later or in a reference folder for promotional materials. But it's just in that 2 minutes, promotions, that's where I put them, over there. I can look at them later if I want to, but how often do I really do that? Any final questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at to-do list versus the capture list,
Mm-hmm.
it feels like my to-do list is a capture list. I started doing it years ago because you think of things in the middle of the night.
And you write them down?
Yeah, I started putting it on the side of the bed so I can just go to sleep and stop thinking about it. And I was very big on Franklin, and I love that.
So her question is, what's the difference between a to-do list and a capture tool? Nothing, except you do something with the capture tool at the end of the day. You put it in one of those places. You do it if it takes less than 2 minutes. You calendar it. You put it in doing later, doing never. And then you tear out the page. So if you're using a to-do list in exactly that way, your to-do list is a capture tool. You just haven't been using those words to describe it. The problem with a traditional to-do list is it's something that we create that goes on, that we scratch things off, maybe not everything, and then you're like, oh, there's one thing on that page I never scratched off, and it's 3 pages back amongst all the scratched off things and the ongoing list. The difference is the clarity of writing things down and making a decision, an honest decision about what you're going to do next and when you're going to do it, and then tearing that out and starting every day clean. What was your next question?
It was, like I said, I used to use Franklin,
Mm-hmm.
and then a few years ago I started using my phone calendar,
Mhm.
and I loved it. I got rid of the paper. Then I got an updated phone, and I was thinking about the technology. I hate the new calendar format, so I don't use it as well. So I feel overwhelmed.
So the idea is, whatever you use, you got to want to use. And you can't feel like it's yucky. So if the calendar in your phone that comes with your phone, whether it be an Apple or, Samsung or whatever, is not feel good to you, then there are other apps for other calendars. You could probably find an electronic calendar for your computer and your phone that sync that you do like. But if you can't find an electronic one, use a paper one. That's fine. You just have to have it with you everywhere and only use it. Don't stick stuff in your phone and use that for a reminder if you're only using a paper calendar. Again, it's how it feels. Everything is in one place always, whatever that place is. I use Outlook. I love Outlook because it syncs with my phone. It's on my computer. You know, it's pretty standard. It's got lots of neat bells and whistles. But there are tons of different calendars, both for your computer and your phone. Can't use one in your phone if it doesn't sync with your computer, and you're going to try to do it both places. Got to be one place. Now, you can access it from different places, but it's got to be one calendar, one tool, whatever you pick. I think we're out of time. I appreciate your time and your attention. I hope that you feel better about all the stuff on your plate. Thanks for your attention.